Welcome to the channel, where we teach advanced level preparedness and encourage resilience through self-sustainability. If you would like to support our non-monetized channel, please consider using our Amazon affiliate or PayPal donation links in the description below.
Hello there and welcome back. Today you're going to learn why I call this an advanced level preparedness channel. So obviously, with everything going on in the world today, with all of the conflict, there's a lot of concern about a global or a world war, and with that comes along the concern over some type of a nuclear strike. So this will cover whether it be a nuclear strike from a foreign nation or whether it just be a nuclear accident at a power plant or something of the similar. So the popular thing is gas masks, and a lot of people, they run out, they buy the gas mask, they think they're taken care of, and that is simply not the case. And let me explain to you why. Before we start talking about gas masks, I want to put out a little warning. Do not open your filters. Do not open your filters. If you have a gas mask, you got filters for it, do not take those filters out of the package. The reason why, the moment you open that package, you just started a timer on those cartridges. Usually that's going to be about a 30-day timer, right from Mira's website. As well as I will tell you that if you do don your gas mask because you need it, and you put your filters in, you put on your mask, on average you've got about 12 hours. And that's a big variable because there's a lot of other things that play into that. Do you have a lot of just dust in your environment? How big are the radioactive particles? How much of the radioactive particles? I mean, all of this plays into how long those filters are going to protect you. So what's a better answer? Because obviously, if that's all you had was a gas mask, you would have to have a warehouse full of filters in order to survive an SHTF situation. That's just not feasible now, is it? There is a better way, a much better way. I'm going to explain that to you today. What you are looking at in front of you is just a simple, this one's a 4-inch. This is my smallest, cheapest one. I had the motor out of this to do a tutorial about AC motors, and so I've got this one out. It's right here. The others are all packed up, and I didn't want to drag them all out just to make this video. This one will be absolutely fine to tell you about. I'm going to talk a little bit about fallout before we get started into my solution. So bear with me here. Fallout is the radioactive particles that fall to the earth as a result of a nuclear explosion. It consists of weapon debris, fission products, and, in case of a ground burst, radiated soil. Fallout particles vary in size from thousandths of a millimeter to several millimeters. Much of this material falls directly back down close to the ground zero within several minutes after the explosion. But some travels high into the atmosphere. This material will be dispersed over the earth during the following hours, days, and months. You can include years in that as well. Fallout is defined as one of two types. Early fallout, within the first 24 hours after an explosion, or delayed fallout, which occurs days or years later. Now there's also other terms for that. One of them is localized fallout. Of course, that would be equivalent to the early fallout. And the other one would be global fallout, which is equivalent to the delayed fallout. Okay? So I wanted to make that very clear. Continuing on, it says most of the radiation hazard, and you'll have links to all this information. Most of the radiation hazard from nuclear bursts come from short-lived radionuclides external to the body. These are generally confined to the locality downwind of the weapon burst point. This radiation hazard comes from radioactive fission fragments with half-lives of seconds to a few months, and from soil and other materials in the vicinity of the burst made radioactive by the intense neutron flux. Most of the particles decay rapidly. Even so, beyond the blast radius of the exploding weapons, there would be areas or hotspots that survivors could not enter because of radioactive contamination from the long-lived radioactive isotopes like strontium-90 or cesium-137. For the survivors of a nuclear war, this lingering radiation hazard could represent a grave threat for as long as 1 to 5 years after the attack. Predictions of the amount and levels of the radioactive fallout are difficult because of several factors. These include the yield and design of the weapon, the height of the explosion, the nature of the surface beneath the point of the burst, and meteorological conditions such as wind direction and speed, as well as rain. I'll throw that in there, that's not in there, but obviously the weather, huge, especially things like rain. Rain will actually, if there's radioactive particles in the air, rain will actually bring it down to the ground. It's not necessarily a good thing. You really do not want it to rain. So let's talk about the solution that I'm mentioning here. As I said, this is a 4-inch. My other units are 8-inch. This is a 4-inch. Again, I had it handy already, so I'm just using it. This is just an inline duct fan, okay? This is a cheap one. This one is a Go Plus. I think they make the same ones under the name iPower now, but this one was branded Go Plus when I bought it, and you can't find them now. Now you see the iPower brand, and they're the exact same model. So I do recommend you get a better inline duct fan. What do I recommend? AC Infinity. I will put a link to all of this stuff. I'll put affiliate links to Amazon down in the description of the video, and I'll be putting pictures up so you can see what the item looks like. I recommend an AC Infinity 8-inch inline duct fan, as well as an 8-inch filter from AC Infinity and 8-inch tubing. So let's talk about this real quick. What would possibly be better in your environment, considering you're inside, than having a gas mask on? Well, there's something called positive pressure environment, and that's what you want to do. You want to create what they call a positive pressure environment, and what that basically means is that you're bringing air in from the outside, and don't worry, it's going to be filtered air. We're going to get to that. You're bringing air in from the outside and putting it on the inside. And what you're doing is you're raising the air pressure inside the space that you are, whether you're in a basement, which if you have a basement, I would recommend that. You want to put yourself as far away from the radioactive particles as possible. So if you've got a 2-story house with a basement, your best bet's going to be down in that basement. You want to be as far from those radioactive particles as possible. And what you want to do is you want to pipe the air in that comes in from your inline fan and your filter, and you want to create that positive pressure environment inside that room, because what happens then is you're constantly pushing air out through the cracks, because you're not going to have an airtight room. If you had an airtight room, you're going to suffocate. So what you're doing is you're increasing the pressure in the room so that no air other than what you're pulling in with your system, no other air is getting in unless it's filtered through your system. So what you're doing is you're pushing the air out that's inside of the space you're in. It's called a positive pressure environment. Now, there's an easy way to do this, and this is what I'm going over today. I'm going to go over the easy way to do this. Could you do it cheaper? Absolutely, you could do it cheaper. However, that's going to be much more detailed, and I'll be more than happy to go into how you can actually make your own filters and all of that stuff if you guys want to hear that. Obviously, it takes a lot more DIY, knowing, how to work with tools and how to work with, whatever materials you're using and all that stuff. So for today, right now, we're just going to keep this to the add to cart method, if you will. I'm not a fan of that, but sometimes it's the only choice that people have. So first of all, you need your inline duct fan. And again, this is a 4-inch. I recommend using an 8-inch. And this here is an activated carbon filter. That's all it is, activated carbon filter. It's got an inlet there, and the other side is blocked off, obviously. But let me go ahead and get this out of the way, this inline duct fan. We'll set her down here so I got a little more room on the table. So there's your filter. And obviously, you're going to want to take some duct tubing here, and you're going to want to scoot it over that, and you're going to want to clamp it down. That should be a given, right? But, and then the other end obviously goes into your inline duct fan. You want this to be on the outside, okay? You can have your blower, your inline duct fan, you can have that on the inside, that's perfectly fine, but you want your filter obviously to be outside. I would also, and there's one more thing we need to do to this filter here, but I want to show you before we get to that. Here's the other thing I would do. Now understand, I'm using this tub because it's small enough to fit on my table and on the camera. You would need a bigger tub than this, okay? I'm going to repeat that. You will need a bigger tub than this. This is just for demonstration purposes. So what I would do is I would simply cut a hole. So I am trying to make it where you can see. I would cut a hole in the end. Just big enough. I know I'm not on camera there, my apologies. And I would make that hole fit as absolutely tight as I can around this, okay? And then what you're going to do is you're going to stick that inside. Remember, yours is going to be bigger, and obviously your end is going to be poking out of the hole. And then what you can do, if you so choose, is you can actually take some self-tapping screws and just screw them in around here. And it's not like you got to use 1,000 of them or nothing like that. I would recommend you use some form of a caulk or something like that in order to create a seal. If you don't have caulk, you can use other things like petroleum jelly. You want to make sure that you have a seal, okay? And I would just simply take those self-tapping screws, run them through the side of the tote, right into there. There's going to be a plastic piece that's behind this, okay? So you're going to be driving, you'll be running that screw. So don't over tighten because you'll strip it out. Just you just want to snug it up so that it has something over it. The whole point of this is to put something over top of the filter, okay? And then you're going to want to obviously, you're going to take and you're going to drill holes into the side. And I would recommend, if you're using an 8-inch inline duct fan, I would recommend, say 4-inch holes would be fine. Even 3-inch holes would be fine if you need to. And just put you some holes on the side, right? The idea is that fallout is falling from the sky, right? So what you're doing is you're basically, let me flip this around so it's a little more accurate. You're covering your filter so that the fallout that comes and falls isn't just going to be hitting straight onto your filter and clogging it up prematurely. It's going to be hitting this, hitting your tote. That's the idea behind that. But there is one thing that you're going to want to do before you put this filter in that tub. There is a filter material called MERV 13. And again, I'll show a picture of it on the screen, as well as I will have an Amazon affiliate link below where you can purchase some MERV 13 filter material. I also have that packed up, and I don't really want to dig all that stuff out just to make this video. So we're just going to say that this t-shirt here is MERV 13 material. And what we're going to do, it's a filter material is what it is, commonly used for like furnace filters and stuff like that. But it has a 0.03 micron pore size, opening size. So it will filter out anything over 0.3 microns. And we're going to talk about that here in a moment. But what you're going to do is you're just going to wrap that filter with that MERV 13 filter paper, okay? And then what you're going to do is you're going to take something like duct tape, use something good, use Gorilla Tape if need be, and you're just going to run it around the ends on both sides. Obviously you want it to seal airtight there. And then where you've got your seam here, you're going to want to run some of that duct tape across that seam, because obviously you don't want anything getting past that filter, okay? So that is what you're going to do with the filter. Again, you run your tubing, your hose, ductwork, whatever you want to call it, inside. On the inside you put your inline ducted fan, and there you go. You have just made yourself, I don't want to call it like a whole house filter, but a space filter, because depending on how much space it is that you're trying to create a positive pressure environment will depend on how many of those systems that you need to put in. So if this living room isn't very, very big, so one single, if I was just trying to create a positive pressure environment in just our living room, one single 8-inch ducted fan would work enough. It would do it enough. It would create a positive pressure environment. So let's talk about the filtration and the sizes. We've already talked about the filters, and I do recommend the AC Infinity brand filters. Again, I will put up a picture of what it looks like, and in the description and in the first comment you'll have an Amazon affiliate link to the AC Infinity 8-inch filters. You're going to have your inline duct fan, obviously. You need your ducting there, and it's kind of like a slinky, but not quite, right? So let's talk for a moment. What is this going to protect you from? What could possibly this system protect you from? Well, like I said, that MERV 13 filter paper is going to filter out anything larger than 0.03. Did I say 0.3 microns earlier? If I did, I profusely apologize. 0.03 microns. How big is radioactive particles? Well, that's where we have to talk about whether it's localized or whether it's global, or early or delayed, whichever you want to call it. If it's localized, it's going to be larger particles. Your localized is what you're going to want to worry about the most. It's going to be your localized. It's going to be right after the blast, and it's going to be, within relative proximity to the blast. Those particles are going to be, almost every single bit of it is going to be larger than 0.03 microns. So that MERV 13 filter paper is going to do a splendid job of filtering it out, as well as the activated carbon, or the activated charcoal, in your filter. Okay? So between the two, you're going to be filtering that air pretty well, and considering that you have a positive pressure environment, the only air that you're getting in there is going to be through that filter. Now, when it comes to the global fallout or the delayed fallout, now that can be a lot smaller. How small? Well, 10 nanoparticles. How big is 10 nanoparticles? 1,000 nanoparticles equals 1 micron. So 10 nanoparticles is going to be equal to 0.01 microns. Okay, so when it comes to the global fallout or the delayed fallout, no, that MERV 13 filter paper is not going to be able to filter that. I'm sure it'll get a lot of it, but it certainly won't get all of it. However, it's not the global fallout that you need to be so much concerned about. It's that localized or that early immediate fallout that you're going to have to be a little more concerned about. So that's really it. I could run this on and on and on, but in less than 20 minutes, I explained to you an actual feasible way in order to protect yourself from nuclear fallout. If you'd like to see a video where I went through and I did a DIY filter using, and I will put up a link, as well, a picture and a link, where you can get the activated, right on Amazon, buy it in bulk, the activated charcoal, okay? Because you can most certainly rebuild or repack, whatever words you want to use on this. What it is, you've got 3 screws, you pull those 3 screws out. Other filters may have 4, whatever. Just pull those screws out, pull off your filter, your end cap here, and then you're going to see like a plastic plug in there. The plastic plug, I know on these, they're riveted in, and so you just zip those rivets out and pull that plastic plug out. And then you can literally dump out your activated charcoal, your old stuff, and you can dump the new stuff in it and replace that plastic piece. You can either use a screw or you can re-rivet it however you choose, and there you go, you're starting fresh again. Now, somebody might have the bright question, well, what am I supposed to do when I have to go outside and change the MERV 13 filter paper that's on the filter. Well, here's the thing. Do not have just one. And let's just say you only need one, okay? Don't have just one filter, have two. And that way you can have one ready to go on the inside, ready to go to where you can take it out. That is when you put on your gas mask and your Tyvek suit, okay? When you have to go out and you have to, deal with your filter, don your Tyvek suit, don your gas mask, go out, change out your filter, come back in, and I don't know, honestly, I don't know what other people would say about this, but what I would do is I would then take the cartridge out of my gas mask and I would vacuum seal it. Because then you're getting it back out of the, outside air environment, and you're probably gonna go ahead and extend the life, and instead of just leaving it open and then letting that filter go to the waste whenever you were only out there for 5 minutes changing out a filter. I would recommend that you vacuum seal after you've changed your filter. You come back in, you've got all your air off and stuff. I would recommend that you vacuum seal that cartridge for your gas mask, just to try to extend the longevity as much as you can. You'll know when that gas mask filter is getting clogged up, because it will be hard to breathe through. You'll know. So anyway, and I wouldn't recommend trying to use one for over about 12 hours. But, and that's the same advice from Mira. So, I just wanted to go over this because there is a much better way to protect ourselves from radioactive fallout than buying a warehouse full of gas mask filters. Anyway, I hope I could teach you something with this. I hope you learned. As always, I hope you have a wonderful and blessed day, and shalom.